Yeah, what's up, guys? Jairus here, and welcome to another episode of Jairus Inspires Podcast. And this is officially the most challenging podcast that I will ever do.
I don't know why you think that. Oh my word, why?
Because you do this for a living. It's not even fair. I just started doing podcasts, and every single day you do this for a living, So yeah, and then you do this for how long now?
Right? I've been doing a podcast now I actually started one in 2020 that never took off. I only did like 2 or 3 episodes because like we were doing the setup here, I was doing everything on my own. And then it was called Expiry Date, and then I sort of canned that and then reworked it, and I started in 2023. So I've been doing it for just over a year now. Yeah.
And have I told you that you're one of the biggest inspiration to start this podcast?
Yeah, you mentioned it, but I mean, now that you're saying that it's recorded, I'm like, okay.
First time you heard it? Yeah. I mean, that's true. Because I've been planning this podcast for a long time now. Okay, I just need some extra boost, extra motivation, and that's when Andrew came along. He hired me to produce his podcast. Yeah, and that's the moment I managed to get another mic, a recorder, and also when we filmed, I saw how you speak, I saw how you talk, how you come up with questions.
Thank you.
How you. It was like I was like, I want to be this guy. I want to train myself how to speak in public. Because I always have this dream. Like since I don't know, since I was young, I want to train myself. So I always find ways to train myself. Like for example, my social media, my Instagram, and YouTube,
blowing up,
and also this podcast. This is something to help myself as well. So it's not just to help me inspire people, but also to help myself to develop.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that you mentioned over there, which is really important for me, and it's something that people ask me all the time, are you going to monetize the podcast? Are you going to get it branded? And that ideally, yes, but not to make money from it. For me, if the podcast can pay for itself and it inspires one particular person to start something that they've been putting off for a while, that's what the goal is for me, right? And what you're doing now, just in listening to what you were saying, what you do now is you pay it forward. So now you're using your platform of followers and your reels, and we filmed reels together as well. We've done your series together, and you have now paid it forward. You're going to inspire one person, and it's a knock-on effect the entire time, and people absolutely love seeing a story of somebody that's putting their heart and soul into everything. And I'm turning to camera for this, but I can see that you put your heart and soul into absolutely everything that you do. And especially when we were deciding on where we were going to film my podcast, the rebranding and all of that, you said, Andrew, like a lot of the studios look the same. It's time to really just give it a unique flow. And that's when I knew, wait, I take that back. I knew that you have the most incredible creative genius with how you captured my photo shoot for the podcast. So we did this this photo shoot in the studio, and I had somewhat of a little vision, but then you just took it and you ran with it. And to see a creative, to see an artist really just come to life and have fun with something is incredible for me.
Thank you for the good words. I will transfer you the money.
Thank you so much.
But before we go into the conversation, I just want to introduce you guys, my very special guest for today. The amazing Andrew.
Thank you.
Woo! We have some. We have some.
Woo! Oh, you want
the rice cooker.
Don't forget about the air fryer.
Air fryer. I just bought it 2 months ago. It's fairly new. All right. All right, Andrew. Before we go to the topic, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. What is it that you'd like to know about me? So I'll tell you a bit about my career and why I've chosen to inspire people. Let's run with that. So I have an absolute obsession with commercial aviation. I love anything to do with an aircraft. You've seen my apartment. You've seen that big model up in my apartment. I have a tattoo of an aircraft over here. I even have metal pieces of aircraft that have been scrapped. When they break it up because it doesn't fly anymore. And I've got officially certified metal pieces of certain aircraft. So that was really what inspired me when I was young. And I knew, okay, I need to somehow work on an aircraft one day, which I thought was going to be a pilot. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be a pilot. And then I looked at what pilots do. And if there's any pilots that are listening and watching to this, please don't come for me in the comments. But it's so boring. Oh my word. It is so boring.
Why do you think they just sleep the whole
honestly, they just they sit there. And what if you don't get along with the person next to you and you've got to sit with them for 14 hours? No. And then I remember there was a specific moment when I was, I must have been about 11 or 12. 11 or 12. It was just when 9/11 happened, right? And my mom was working in security for South African Airways, and she would go for extra checks for the Atlanta US flight. And because it was on a Sunday, I could go with her to the airport, right? And I went with her, and I just remember this one Sunday night seeing this like sea of blue coming towards the check-in counters, and it was the group of cabin crew. And that's when I knew. I was like, you know what? I'm going to work on an aircraft as cabin crew. So went through school. I started flying with South African Airways when I was 18. And then when I was the ripe old age of 20, I moved here to Abu Dhabi, actually, where I have now been in the UAE for going on 17 years. That's a really, really long time. Usually people are like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go for a year.
You're longer than me.
Oh really? How long have you been here?
16. I came here 2007.
Okay, you're longer than me. I'm going on 17 years. You're on 17 years. I'm on like 16 years.
Okay. Oh, come on. We're already citizen here in the UAE.
We are the OGs, okay? We are the OGs, all right?
Yeah, and what do you know exactly?
So I moved over here. I started as cabin crew, and then I worked my way up in the airline, and I've always been fascinated by leadership. I've been very lucky blessed with my parents. They've always held really high leadership positions, and they've also inspired me to a certain extent. And I knew that I wanted to be as much of a leader as I possibly could. So worked my way up in Etihad, and then an opportunity came along where they said, look, flying is great, but we've got this part-time position on ground where you can work with developing leaders. And I was like, yep, let's go. Did the interview, followed the protocol, did everything. And I joined the leadership development training program. And we developed the onboard leaders. So that was 2 years that I spent training. That was almost 10 years ago. So I've been training and facilitating for 10 years. And then I loved that a lot. I loved it so much. Standing in front of a room, facilitating, and not just facilitating service stuff or safety stuff, but like emotional development, all sorts of psychological things. That's what inspired me. So when they said to me, look, the program is finished, we're going to go back flying full time, I said, I love flying, but I need to explore this. So I then put my feelers out, and through networking, a friend of mine called me and said, hey, we've got this position for a learning and development manager. Would you like to interview for it? And I'm thinking to myself, sure, what is it? It's easy, learning and development. So I applied for it. I went for the interview. I passed everything. And then when I got the job and left flying and started in my learning and development manager position at the Madinat Jumeirah, I realized I had no idea what I was doing. You know what they say? It's so true when people say it now, because I think everybody to some degree doesn't know what they're doing. They just really get good at presenting. They get really good at presenting like they do. Anyway, that's why get good at presenting skills, right? Because we have to present like we know what we're doing.
Exactly.
And then I was promoted a year later to Director of Learning and Development, and I loved it. But then COVID happened, and Learning and Development being an overhead cost was the first department to go. And then I rejoined Jumeirah, did I think about another year, and then I finished my corporate career with the Rotana Hotel Group. So I was Senior Director of Learning and Development and Talent Management. And I got that at the age of 34, where I was heading up the learning and development and progression of 10,000 employees across 70 business units. So that was a massive accomplishment for me and a great company to work for. But I realized about 18 months into the job, 18 months, almost 2 years, that nothing wrong with the job. It's just not the job for me. Okay. Right? And I had to make a decision where I was always following titles, thinking titles were going to give me what I want, give me what I need. And it was just going to, you have this title equals happiness. It doesn't work like that. So I made a decision to, instead of follow a title, I was one position away from vice president. So I made a decision. I either stay unhappy and get the title so that everything in my life looks perfect on paper, or I follow my purpose. Wow. So I reached out to my now CEO, who you know very well, Hazel, and I said to her, look, would you mind helping me build my network to get back into aviation, doing what I'm doing now? And Hazel turned around and said to me, look, we would probably be quite silly if we passed an opportunity to work with you. And this all comes down to networking. Anyway, I said, okay, let me explore and see what that looks like. And that was over a year ago. I've now been with Biz Group as a senior consultant for 10 months. And in 10 months, I've worked across 12 different industries, all the way from individual contributors to CEOs. I have coached incredible people. I have spoken at incredible events, and it's just been such an amazing ride because I made the decision to follow my purpose. So that was quite a long introduction. Sorry about that.
Well, you just said 100,000 words. I have a counter here.
Wow, oh my God.
That's already a separate podcast episode by itself.
I'm going to copyright that so you can print it and put it in a book. Thank you.
Yeah, so you mentioned Biz Group. So just a bit of context. Andrew is working in the same company that I used to work with. So I worked with Biz Group for 2.5 years, almost 3.
Okay.
And then I left to start my own company. And until now, I'm still working with Biz Group. So they're basically my clients since I left my company, which is one of their values, is supporting people's personal growth.
Yes.
And until now, I'm still very happy that they're still supporting me.
Yeah.
And
well, people support you, don't forget. People support you when you do good work.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And if you weren't consistently good at what you do, you wouldn't be called back. And it doesn't matter what company it is. It's just you are good at what you do.
Exactly.
So take the compliment.
So I believe that the attitude is more important than the skills.
Oh, do you want a nugget to hold on to for that?
Okay.
Your attitude determines your altitude. So your attitude determines how far you go. Write it down, get it in that word counter, that word counter.
All right, so since you mentioned a lot about leadership,
yes.
So the topic for today is about leadership, all right, which Andrew is very good at because again you do this for a living, and leadership is kind of intrigued me the most because this is something that I never heard in any creative environment.
Okay,
like I've been freelancing for a long time now, for more than 15 years, and I never heard a single photographer, videographer, filmmaker who talk about leadership.
Really?
Yeah. But
you actually mentioned that to me a while ago, so I'm glad that you're bringing it up. And I also found it quite fascinating.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm just like, when you think about it, because a lot of, as an entrepreneur, as a creative, as an artist, you do everything on your own. This whole setup that we're in right now is done on your own. So where do you bring the lead? Self-leadership is also something different, but where do you bring the discipline to continue all of this?
Yeah.
Right?
Which we're going to dive into.
I want to know what motivates you.
Yeah. So when I worked with Biz Group, that's the first time that I heard about leadership, which they talk about almost everything.
Oh my word, leadership is everything
and
for us. Yeah.
That's when I've kind of trained myself, I've learned a lot from this group, from my speaking skills to my, of course, leadership. And I remember told you that this is kind of my frustration. Like I want to have my own team. Like when I was still working corporate, I want to kind of have at least a small team, but I never had a chance.
Okay.
I never had a chance. That's probably one of the main reasons why I push myself to have my own company. So at least somehow that I could explore being leader.
Absolutely.
So though I don't have a huge group, but still I have people working for me, and I kind of managed to implement the leadership styles that I've learned from this group. So again, leadership, this is something I never heard from creative industry, and Andrew here right now is going to prove you guys why leadership is important. In any kind of environment, like it doesn't matter if you're on a film set, production work, birthday parties, weddings, or just being yourself. Why leadership is important. So we're good.
We're good.
Let's
Let's
go.
go.
Questions?
Let's go. Do you have 24-hour battery charge on that? Because that's how long we're going to be talking, right?
Are you sure? Okay. It's
you actually fell for that. Oh my God.
I have 1.8 gigabytes of card, so let's do it. Don't challenge me, Andrew. I have ChatGPT in front of me. So I can just, write the prompt. Give me 10 questions for Andrew.
Amazing.
We're done.
Let's go.
Okay. So I asked ChatGPT for help because, I'm Mafi English. All right. Andrew, first question, for sure is going to be easy for you. Why is leadership important in the work environment? Not just for corporate, but also in the creative world.
That is a loaded question. I love the question. And the first thing that comes to mind when I answer a question like that is, it's not just about the corporate world and all the other worlds that you were talking about in the question. I think what you've got to keep in mind is leadership is wired in us. It is wired in our brain in a fundamental neurological way that we need something to follow, right? And if you go back to like how everything worked when in tribe mentality, where we're a community of people, and in order for people to adhere to certain rules, I think this is the most basic explanation, but for people to adhere to certain rules, there had to be somebody that had to regulate that. So if you think about it, it's not just somebody telling the people what to do and how to live their life, it's also somebody going, I'm going to sort of test and see how this goes. And because you see me testing and seeing how it goes, then you're going to follow. Therefore, I become the leader. Yeah. And a lot of people will probably either disagree with that it's a really, really basic explanation, but translate that into, and I'm talking about good leaders, translate that into the animal kingdom, where you see lions with a pack of lions, you see wolves, you see any animal group, any mammal, there is a leader that people follow, right? So when you take the whole history of a community needs rules, the rules need to be implemented by somebody that was willing to try them and either break them or find them flexible or not. These people saw that as an inspiration. It might not have been articulated in that way, but they saw that as an inspiration, and therefore this leadership role became what it is today. So if you translate that into corporate world today, going, right, why is leadership so important in the world around us? If you think about it, you and I and everybody listening, when we wake up in the morning, I think one of the things that we think is, I just want to have a good day, right? Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, you know what? I'm going to ruin everybody's day that I meet today. So everybody wants to have a good day. So we see the good in people, right? We try and see the good in people. And unfortunately, there are people out there for various reasons. It could be psychological disorders. It could be mental disorders. It could be all sorts of different things that want to ruin absolutely everything that they come into contact with.
I want to give shout out to Shamna. I'm not saying Shamna. Hey,
oh my God.
The
timing
I'm not saying Shamna. I'm not saying you're referring to Shamna. I'm just giving a shout out to Shamna because she's the reason why we.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Shamna.
That's a good recovery. So the.
I'm going to get my Shamna.
You're going to get so much trouble for that. So what happened is you then have to go, right, we need to almost police how things are done, right? And that then becomes why we have people that we report into, people that regulate. And if you translate it back, that's what I was saying about good leaders. Let me clean this entire thing up for you, right? So you've got tribe mentality where you have one person that the tribe follows because this person either put themselves out there, took a risk, or is somebody that people are inspired by. Yeah. That then went through the ranks, through the years, through generations, through evolution, translated into the corporate world today, and you've got good leaders that will try something first, get their team to buy in with a vision and things like that. Wow. I do want to end this question, though, with one thing. And for a lot of people that have ever been to a leadership facilitation, for any people that have been in a leadership workshop, you will always see every single one, and I'm willing to put money on it, is that you will see a slide that goes manager versus leader, right? And the manager gets painted out to be this terrible person, and the leader is, ever inspiring and all of that. It is so incorrect. It is so wrong. And this is where, whenever I get an opportunity, you can see my body language has changed, like I'm passionate about this. But a manager is required, because a manager is the person that keeps things in line, right? A leader is somebody that's got vision, but people respond to a manager and people respond to leaders. It depends on context. So I'm gonna do a little bit of a mic drop here. Well, I call it a mic drop. The audience might not. But I think you need to be a conductor, right? And a conductor, if you think about it, that is in front of all these musical instruments and these people that have master's degrees and PhDs in music and musical history and all of that. And they are able to, with no words, conduct this incredible and build this beautiful harmony, right? No words, and they're bringing absolutely every diverse person to their optimal operating level. And that's what the businesses, and that's what the world needs, is more conductors.
Wow, I like all the analogy.
Thank
analogy
you.
that you used,
I'm the analogy king.
Yeah,
And I
especially the animals that
Yeah.
blew my mind away.
Yeah,
Like,
but I mean, look at it. When wolves are there's this video that I saw where a good wolf leader, a leader of a wolf pack, a good one will walk behind the pack to make sure that they make it through okay, and one that is weaker, one that's considered weaker, will be in front to get through everything first. And if something happens to the people behind, or something happens to the wolves behind them, say lovey.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it applies to land animals, even birds, even
Exactly.
insects, right?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's good. Okay, just for my fellow, for my fellow photographers, videographers, we don't understand much leadership. I guess, again, as I told you, we kind of discussed this topic. Okay, so just give us some examples of what a good leader is, like in
Sure.
the basic ones. What is a good leader?
For me, a good leader, or somebody that is leading really, really well, leading people really, really well, is somebody that has a very deep understanding of themselves, right? The reason why I say that is because we're all wired differently, right? I am triggered by different things. You are triggered by different things. We can't control our triggers, but we can control our behaviors. And a good leader for me is somebody who is able to regulate their emotions. Here's why I say that. What I've noticed in my career is that the higher you go in a leadership role, so you start off as a supervisor, then manager, then you work your way all the way up to C-suite, right? I see leaders over and over, and I executive coach, some very senior leaders, and I see that as they grow, not necessarily the people that I coach, but in my experience as well, the more irrational they become. And the reason for that is because so much of the weight of who they are is held by their title, not by the person in the title. So a good lead, and they become more irrational because less people or more people start saying, no, it's Sunday, forgive me. My maths is not mathing today, okay? The less people say no to them, so they always get what they want, right? So when something doesn't go their way, their emotions are all over the place. I have seen very senior leaders throw their toys out of the cot like they're a 2-year-old, right? So to go back to answering your question, what makes a good leader is deepen your self-awareness. If you know what triggers you, you know how you behave when you are triggered, and you are able to change the way that you behave and regulate a consistent flow of emotions, people will learn to trust you. And if people trust you, that's what makes you a good leader. So to answer the question, just in case you want to use this as a soundbite, what makes a good leader is somebody that has a really deep sense of themselves and the way that they behave, and somebody that is consistent.
Yeah,
and trust. And has trust.
It's something that I've learned from this group that I applied in my work environment. Like I know a lot of producers or directors. If there's just any single, anything wrong happened to the set, they
totally.
tantrums,
Look, and I want to add that there as well. We are human beings.
Yeah.
Okay, we experience, I think, thousands of emotions throughout our life. And what I read the other day is we've only labeled about 752 of the over 2,000 emotions that we'll experience as human beings. It is bound to happen that you're going to walk into your office or onto set or into a group of people, into a project or whatever, and you might have had a really bad morning. Yes. Something's happening at home. You cannot separate personal and work life. And that's why I say have a deep sense of yourself, so that you know when you're about to lose it. Because when you know when you're about to lose it, you can do something about it. And that's what makes you a good leader. And just to go back on the whole trust thing as well, those two things, self-awareness and trust. To go back on the trust thing, people trust you when you are consistent. So our brain, tell me if I'm talking too long, because I can talk about this for ages. So if you think about it, our brain has one job. One job only, and that is to keep us alive. So it's constantly scanning for danger. But every second, all of the sensors in our body are taking in millions of data. Our brain can't process it all at the same time, right? We can only process up to about 4 or 5 things at a time. So what our brain does is it creates shortcuts that we don't have to think about to continue focusing on if there's danger around us. And one of those shortcuts is the behavior of people we are close with. So think about your best friend. Think about the person that you are closest to. If I had to present a situation or a scenario to you, you would be able to tell me how this person reacts because you know them so well. There's that bond of trust. So translate that into a leadership role is if you behave 95% of the time consistently and you have that emotional outburst just because things may get too much or things are overwhelming at time, and the amount of stress that we face each and every day, every human being is, in comparison to what they did many, many years ago, is astronomical, right? It's bound to happen. But if you've got 95% in the bank of consistent behavior, that's not what's going to throw your team off, right? If you've got 95% of inconsistent behavior, you're going to have a team around you that are going to... because I literally used to think, I've had a manager, when she used to walk in the morning, we used to think, oh Lord, what are we going to get today?
Oh my God. You don't want...
Do not be in the firing line. Do not be in the firing line.
Yeah. That's why I always try my best to be comfortable. The people that are working with me, I want them to be as comfortable
absolutely
as possible with me.
Yeah. I think, and that's a really, really good point. If people are comfortable around you, and don't confuse comfort with complacency. So when people are comfortable around you and they still feel inspired and they trust you, that's when they'll still produce work, and they'll produce really creative and innovative work. But if people become complacent because you've gone too far on making them feel comfortable, so it's about striking that balance. If you've gone too far into making them comfortable, they become complacent. Therefore, the quality and the value of the work deteriorates.
Cool. I think leadership is something that you could train for yourself. Is it something that you could learn, or it's like it's already built within us? Like, you're born, is it either you're a leader or not?
So let me ask you this. If you look at I've never actually asked anybody this question, but I've been facilitating a lot of leadership psychometric workshops lately, and this is something that I've been pondering about. And if you look at every successful leader that we have in the world, anybody that you look up to in some shape, way, or form is a leader. Whether it's a captain of a sports team, whether it is a president, whether it is a leading actress or whatever. In some way, shape, or form, they are a leader. Now, if you look at every single one of them, they're all different. So they have done what they have done, and this is where people get it, I don't want to say get it wrong, where people are misguided, is I'm going to go to a leadership course, okay? And I'm going to sit in the leadership course and I'm going to be introduced to all of these models of leadership, and this is how you must act, and leader versus manager, and all of these things. And I'm going to walk out of the leadership workshop and I'm going to be the best person on the planet, right? It's impossible, right? Going back to what I was saying earlier is just know how you behave. Because if you know how you behave, you will learn what your leadership style is. And this is what I was meaning by where people become misguided, is that they think they have to act in a way. Don't act, be authentic. But in order to be authentic, you have to be able to allow yourself to make mistakes as you become a leader. And this usually happens at the beginning of any leadership role, right? I see new leaders step into it. They were an individual contributor and now they're stepping into their first leadership role. The first thing that I see happen all the time is micromanaging. I did it. I'm guilty of it. People want to micromanage everything because they don't trust anybody, right? And that's what happens when you first step into a leadership role. Let it happen. Because you will learn, somebody will say something to you and it will hurt and it will sting, or you'll get something wrong on a project, or you won't be able to deliver to a client, or something will go wrong. And you will learn in that moment, if you have that deep level of self-awareness, of what your style of leadership is. Because you've landed on the models, which is a good foundation. All the workshops, all the YouTube shows, the TED Talks, everything about that is a great foundation. But like I say to people that I present or that I coach in presenting, you can watch 500 YouTube videos on how to be a good leader, but you're not going to be a good leader until you go and lead. Right? So you've got to be able to give yourself compassion and show yourself grace when you make mistakes, because that's what shapes your style of leadership. And your style of leadership is going to be different to my style of leadership based on environment and context.
Yeah.
So
good. I mean, wow. That's a lot. Can we take a break? Can we just take a sip of water? Andrew, oh my God.
I've never actually. So what's really cool about this for me, about this entire experience for me is, firstly, I've never been a guest on anybody's podcast. So this is my first time guesting on a podcast. Wow. Yeah. That is an exclusive, a J. Roos exclusive. It's the first time that I've guested on a podcast. And I answer questions about leadership all the time, but it's one question here, one question there in the workshops that I do or in coaching conversations and things like that. It's never been like okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about leadership. So this is really, really cool for me, which is why he was nervous in the beginning, but I've got like these butterflies sort of vibe going, just like, I'm excited, I'm passionate. It's like I've been holding all of this leadership stuff in and nobody's let me let it out. So here we go.
All right. Okay, cool. Okay. Next one. Do you think leadership also affects clients' work relationship, or does it only applies to your, to your company or to your team?
Leadership applies to absolutely everything.
Oh, really?
Absolutely
Like how?
everything.
In what
Okay. One of the first things that they tell you, I don't know if they tell you this when you join the army, because obviously I never went to the army, but it's first thing you do when you get up in the morning is you make your bed. If you're going to change the world, first thing you do, that's the quote. And I don't know who said it, so we'll have to try and fact check this, but when you wake up in the morning, make your bed.
Wait, I'll be back.
Okay.
Okay. In my room.
Okay. Yeah. No worries. But that's the first thing, right? You wake up in the morning and you're like, the first thing that you have to do is you have to make your bed, because that is discipline. And that is one of the fundamental pillars to a good leader.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
In the Navy.
From tomorrow, I will,
I start everything on a Monday, and then like by Tuesday, I'm just like, let's go back to how things were. I'm bored. So when you think about leadership, and it applies across the board to absolutely everything you do in your life, because how are you doing this? That's leadership. You might not have a team, but what you're doing now for yourself and your business, you are a leader.
Self-leadership.
Correct.
Wow.
So it's self-leadership. Sometimes in a relationship, whether it's romantic or a friendship, you have to take the lead, right? Think of an example over here. I'm trying to think of an example of when a friend of mine was in a car accident, didn't quite know what to do. You step in and you take the lead, right? It's not the leadership that you learn in the books and the textbooks and in the leadership courses, because that's all about corporate and economy and things like that. But you lead every single day in your life, across every aspect of your life as well. So I fully believe that leadership is across the board.
I thought leadership's only applied when with somebody else.
No. When you walk into when you're leading somebody else, that by then you've had enough self-leadership experience to know, right, I know how to lead myself. Might not work with this person, and you'll learn it through very hard lessons, but you'll get there. But leadership is across the board.
Okay, I have one question that just came out into my mind that it's not ChatGPT.
Okay, all right.
Just help me out, okay?
Okay.
Do you think there are leaders out there that they're so bad at leadership that they became good at leading people or leading the company? Like, for example, they're so bad but they're so successful. Is it? I mean, does it happen?
Oh my God, every single day. Oh my word.
Really?
I have worked with those leaders.
Yeah.
I have worked with those leaders.
Wow.
So, without giving too much away, I've worked with those leaders where they have become. So here, okay, let's backtrack for a second, okay? In today's day and age, right? Think about your social media following, right? In today's day and age, work no longer speaks for itself, right? So if you produce this amazing project at work and you think, oh yeah, I've produced this amazing project, I'm going to be promoted and it's going to go well. It's not. Why? We have to market ourselves. So as you progress in your career, you learn this by watching the behaviors of others around you. And when you learn that, why is that person getting ahead? I put more effort into this project. Why are they getting the promotion? If you go and watch the cameras, the CCTV cameras in the office, you'll probably see that person socializes professionally, not outside of work, but it's either calculated or it's not. It depends on the person, that they have really good social relationships with people around them, right? They might not know 100% of the topic, but they've built enough of an army of people that believe they know enough, right? So let me say that again. They might not be 100% competent in the topic, but they have built a network of people that believe they know enough, right? And when you are sitting, and this is what I'm going to explain to you is one model or one mode. It happens in different methods and ways in most large corporations, where your big leaders or like your senior leaders, I would say senior manager and above, so director and then further up all the way to C-suite, when it's performance appraisal time, and everybody is, doing their performance appraisals and getting, their feedback for the year and things like that, some companies will go into something called there's various words for it, but basically what they do is they get people in a room that decide on your potential based on your past, right? So they have this meeting and they go, here is Jay Roos's performance from the last couple of years or the last year. I'm joking. This is Jay Roos's performance for the last year. What do we think about his potential? So people in the room will go around, and if you are the Jay Roos that has a really strong social network with the people that you work with frequently and you make them feel good and comfortable, like you were saying earlier, your name is going to be spoken about for a little bit longer, which is probably what's going to push it over the edge for the promotion. Yeah. Whereas if you're the Jay Roos that only just produces the work but does nothing with it, your name will be overlooked. Okay. Yeah. Your name will be overlooked. Because remember, leadership is not just about competency. Leadership is also about charisma. And I don't know,
sure. I like it.
With people, and I have been this before, so I get to talk about this, okay? I've been a personality hire. And I don't know if you've seen the meme of like, every business has a personality hire.
Yes.
I have been a personality hire, right? And I've got no shame in it. It launched my career in learning and development. And I learned very quickly that I had no idea what I was doing. That's what I said earlier. But we also have that innate will or want to do well. So that's what drove me to want to better myself. So in those 3 or 4 months where I really didn't know what I was doing, I figured it out.
Yeah, I like when you say charisma, because it's something that I've learned throughout the years. When I started, I was just posting pictures and videos and stuff. But then I realized that I had to figure out how would I separate myself to my other photographers or content creators. And I figured out that it's actually my charisma. My biggest advantage is not actually my photography. I realized that it's actually my charisma, my character, my funny side. So that's why these days I kept abusing and using my charisma.
Absolutely. Go into it, lean into it, and this is. So if you think about what you've just said now, that is linked perfectly to what I was saying earlier, is you have found your style of leadership. But what you've also found is your brand voice.
Yes.
So that's what separated you from all of your other photographers and creators out there, is people know who Jay Roos is. And that just then bolsters and really enforces what I was talking about, where you have built a network of people that will, if I had to go up to 5 of them and go, how would you describe Jay Roos? In some, they would maybe not use the word charisma, but they would describe the definition in some way about charisma. And that's why, that's because they have connected with you, right? They have a connection with you. As human beings, we are built to connect with other human beings. And when you're able to capitalize that based on what you're very good at, that's what's going to propel you into the career of your dreams.
Amazing. I just want to end this episode in this question because again, most of my viewers are photographers, videographers, filmmakers that handling a small team.
Yes.
Okay. I want you to just give some few advices for them. Especially for handling small teams, like how to be a better leader in handling a small team, especially.
I think it's a great way to start handling a small team. It's a great way to start, but at the same time, it can be also really difficult, because what happens in a small team is, because you work with a small group of people. So we're talking about 5 or 6 people right here, right?
Okay. Plus 10, probably. Including models and
perfect, right? Because you work with those people, you tend to pause.
Challenge.
Okay, so I have to structure this into a nice story.
Challenged like that?
No. I'm like, okay. Right, I'm ready. I feel like I need a whiteboard. So the first thing that's going to happen when you are managing, if it's the first time that you're ever managing a small team of people, you are going to overshare, because you want people to essentially like you, because it's your project and you want your project to do well. Therefore, your behavior is going to want to satisfy the people that are in your team. Don't overshare. Learn the difference between sharing what's private and what is personal. So in order to build connection with people in a small team, share personal information about you, right? Like, oh yeah, I went to Global Village on the weekend, or I went to the mall last night. That's personal information that if anybody couldn't use against you or whatever. When you start sharing private information, where you're talking about your marriage, or you're talking about problems with your kids or things like that, that's private information, and that's an overshare, right? And what happens with that is that comfort that you were talking about at the beginning of the episode, that then becomes complacency. So when one of them, and it is inevitable, whether it's a friend, whether you've built a relationship, whether you work with these people every day, somebody is going to disappoint the team. And your biggest mistake when you overshare is that you're going to overlook it. And then the moment a leader, for the first time they do it, they overlook something that somebody has done, the subliminal message that you're sending to the rest of the people is that behavior is fine, without even saying that. So first key point, do not overshare, learn what is personal, learn what is private, and use that to build relationships with people. The next tip that I would give you as somebody managing a small team is discipline. So a small team is probably going to take a little bit more it might not be intentional, okay? But it might be a little bit more of a laxed approach. Now, I'm also trying to add the layer of creative to this now, because creators can, now I'm stereotyping, so this is like the worst thing on the planet, but creatives move at they move with the beats of their own drum, right? And I think managing a small team of creatives, discipline is going to be essential. What do I mean by that? It's not shouting at them or treating them like kids. It's when you say you're starting a meeting at 11, everybody is on time and starts the meeting at 11. And you start that meeting even if everybody's not there, so that you train people without physically training them that when we have a meeting, you're going to be there on time, right? And then I think I'll end off with this tip is, do not, under any circumstance, promise things that you cannot stick to when it comes to people's lives and career, okay? So if I think of a small team of people, and maybe you're going through a slow month, right? And you really need to do this one project, and you need to produce so well for this client, but you have to pay up front. I don't know how it works exactly, so I'm just trying to think of examples. And you have to pay up front, and it's difficult, and you think to yourself, oh, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? I've lost my train of thought now. I was getting so inspired. So it was overshare, it was discipline, and then, the third point, you'll have to invite me back for another episode. I've completely forgotten. I got so inspired and carried away.
Okay.
Do you know when it's going to come to me? It's going to come to me at midnight tonight.
Call me,
yeah, and then I'll do a voiceover. So yeah, we'll just put a still image of me on the podcast, and I'll do a voiceover for you.
Can I replace that? Can I give one good advice? Because,
Yes.
I've been managing team for quite a long time now, and there's something that I think that I'm doing really well, and that is listen.
Oh my God.
I believe that great leaders are, good listeners, and for me, whenever I'm in a set, I work with someone, I always listen. And I always get this feedback from people that I work with that, Jairus, you're good in listening. Like whenever we say something, whenever I have suggestions, you always try to listen, and you always try to why not? I mean, let's do it, I'm not just the self-centered that, just do whatever I want, give me suggestions. Actually, I like that. For example, when I'm working with a model, or with a videographer, photographer, give ideas, because I'm already thinking so much. I'm already handling so much from the clients, from the cameras, from everything. So I want you guys to at least give me some ideas, inspiration.
Oh my God, I remembered the third tip.
Yay!
Yeah.
That's what good leaders do.
Do not promise people things that you cannot give them. So when you're working on this project and you want these people to produce so well, but something is wrong, it's a slow month or whatever, don't say, we'll talk about it in 3 months, or I'll give you that raise in 3 months. If you can't stick to it, don't ever do that, right? And love listening. Listening is one of the most underrated skills out there. So very, very good job in listening.
Yeah. Is that because of your ADHD? Why you forgot your?
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
Your ADHD.
But it came back. It came back. So I'm managing my ADHD here. But it's so true, because you are at some point in your career, in your journey, in your entrepreneurship, going to have to expect a little bit more from people. Don't fall into the trap of promising. It's the carrot stick, right? Don't put people in a carrot stick.
Wow, Andrew, I believe I already became like a 10 times a better leader right after this episode.
You've got to go and practice now.
I learned so much, and I believe my fellow photographers, videographers are going to be a better leader as well in their own way, in their own small team. And then Andrew, thank you so much, and thank you for helping me, inspiring people.
Thank you for letting me be a guest on your podcast, and for being the first. This is my first guest. I'm like my first guest.
You're welcome.
Spot,
You're
so
welcome. And,
I'm very, very happy. Thank you.
Shamna, wherever you are, stay right there.
Yay!